All right, here we go. It's our first podcast with a guest. Name of the podcast for new listeners out there is Enter as Strangers. And what we do is we bring in average, everyday people, friends, family, coworkers, just your average Joe, and we talk to them a little bit about different, maybe a particular story or just different life stories. Basically, just have a conversation. And so today we've got Brody here, Brody Cummings, and he is our brother-in-law. And we've known Brody for how long, Eric?
Shoot,
Has it
7 years?
6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brody, basically, kind of how the format of our podcast goes is that with people that we know that have been here, or that we not that have not been here, but that we know, is what we like to do is kind of give our perception of just stories we've heard, right? And we don't even know if they're really true or not, to be honest with you, because they're third party or whatever. So, and hopefully Eric will kind of have his perspective too, but and then you can let us know how accurate any of this was. But I remember when Jenny, it was probably mom or something, started telling us that Jenny was dating someone, and in fact I'm sure it was mom, and she said that he was, or you were, used to be addicted to meth. That's what I heard. Like I said, I don't know if any of this is actually true, so it'd be interesting to find out. And you'd been to prison before, and so at the time, coming from squeaky clean ex-husband, it was like, what?
Yeah, it was a shock. It was a shock.
Did you hear anything different?
Nope, that's basically what I heard. He was a felon and had an addiction to meth.
Yeah, so basically we thought it'd be interesting to find out a little bit more about that. First of all, how accurate are those statements? I'm sure they're pretty general, but how accurate are they?
100%.
100% accurate?
Every bit of it.
That's a straight, clean answer, I guess. So,
Yeah.
So right on. So how long ago, how long have you been clean then?
October 2011.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So
A while ago.
7 years.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. Right.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah, man. Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So it sounds like you kind of cleaned up your act right after, or right before you met our sister then, or around that time.
Yeah, I was right in the middle of drug court
Oh, okay.
when I met Jen.
Oh, right on. Okay. Well, see, I didn't know that.
Wait a minute, I thought you guys met on Plenty of Fish.
No, she's a probation officer.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. Plenty of fish.
Yeah, we did meet on Plenty of Fish, actually.
Oh,
See?
did you really?
Yes.
There you go.
Wait, did you meet there and then run into each other at court?
No.
No.
She got into the probation stuff through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay.
Her boss is... Boy, we could pull that into a new story, too. I've worked with her boss's husband for most of the last 15 years of my life.
Okay.
He's a concrete cutter. So.
Right. So that's how that all went down then.
Yeah, they tried to pull me out of the depths of hell before I got into drug court.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, this is someone that you've known for forever.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you worked for him.
With him.
Yeah, for a long time. So tell us a little bit about, I'm kind of interested if, how old are you?
40.
How old were you when you first tried meth?
19.
19.
Was that the first drug you ever tried?
No.
What was?
Pot.
So it is a gateway drug.
That's what they say.
They do say that, and that's a
Do you believe it?
No.
I don't either. I'm with him on this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that smoke pot that don't
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
step further.
Well,
than
there's actually no data that shows. There's no real science
No.
that shows it's a gateway drug. So I would assume smoking weed, drinking, is where it all kind of started.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm always curious about this, the details of things. So just hanging out one day and a friend's got it, something like that,
Yeah. So I was living with my older sister
right?
and her husband at the time. Selling a lot of pot, smoking a lot of pot.
Right.
In fact, I was selling it to her husband.
Oh, really?
there was a kid I knew that was homeless, and my sister threw her heart out there and let him move in. And a week later, I walked in the living room, and he's got a straw in his mouth and a piece of tinfoil in his hand, and
Right.
he's smoking something.
Right.
And I didn't know really what it was.
Yeah.
Asked the question, like, what are you doing? He's like, getting high. You want to try? Yes.
And that was the first time right there.
That was the first time.
So no reservations about it at all, right?
No.
You just were like, yeah, I'll try it.
Yeah. Try anything.
Right. So what was your first experience like then?
So my brother-in-law at the time had full-size video games in his basement.
Right.
One of them was Pac-Man.
Okay.
Like old arcade games?
Yeah.
No way. Cool.
Yeah. And I spent the next 9 hours of my life topping every one of his high scores. That's my first experience.
Really?
It was
Yeah. It just wired you up.
nicotine stains on my fingers.
Right.
Because I was smoking like a chimney.
Really?
Yeah.
Just chain smoking.
Chain smoking. I mean, I'd light one up and there was still one burning in the ashtray next to me.
Right.
Just
What's going on in your mind your first time though? Are you
Yeah.
like, oh shit, what did I do? Are you questioning it, or are you just in it and going with
just in it and going with it. There was no question. I really
No fear.
no, not at all. The fear didn't come until I realized what I'd done.
After you came down?
Yeah,
And then you had some fear.
not enough to make me quit.
Well, of course. Of course. Okay. Well, that's man, that's interesting. So, between your first time and your second time, was there any hesitation?
I honestly
Couldn't.
doubt it, but I don't think I could give you a straight answer on that. I don't know.
Were you? Was there a span of time between, or a couple days later, or? It's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. I was
21 years.
20. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You're aging me now. Thank you for
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Juan, the kid that was living with me, he had a pretty good connection on this stuff, and we just. So, the fact of the matter is I'm 100% an addict, and I have an addictive personality. Like I dive into anything and everything head first, usually without thought of consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I dove into that. Pretty much head first.
Just head first.
Yeah.
Did it lead you into try anything else? Heroin?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it sounds like meth was was it your drug of choice?
Absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely.
but you tried a bunch of other shit too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on cocaine, heroin,
Right.
Pills.
Yeah. Did you ever get hooked on the pills then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 2000, I think, I was living in Ogden. My second daughter's mom was with me and her son. Apartment on 24th Street, and I was so strung out I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't hold down a job,
Right.
you know. And we'd run out of food and we'd run out of money, and I didn't have any drugs to get any more money, so I went to my mom's house, and my mom told me that if I hadn't been standing in her living room, she would have known who I was.
Wow.
That's
How
it.
long had it been since she's seen you?
A couple of years.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a physical transformation from being addicted.
I mean, you guys see me, I'm a 270-pound guy.
Right.
When I walked into my mom's house, I was probably 130.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So, that point, I had family members that were in law enforcement, and I think they got together and kind of got a plan put together to try and help me,
Right.
get me straight, and it ended up costing me a good portion of my life, because the only way they could get a hold of me was to bust me,
Right.
and that's where the felon charges come in.
Did they know you had a problem before your mom saw you that day?
Yeah,
Okay. So they were aware.
they were very aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the dead giveaways. When I was doing something stupid, I'd disappear from the family because I think there was shame.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So when you weren't around,
yeah,
they would know.
yeah.
So you said the only way they could get you was to have you busted.
Yeah.
So did someone just point someone in the right direction at the right time, or was it a little bit more complex than that?
So the way I remember it is there was a kid I was getting high with that I went to school with.
Right.
And I mean, me and this kid fought at the bus stop in grade school. We'd known each other a long time.
Right.
And they caught him leaving my house with a busted taillight.
Ah.
And somehow they flipped him. And a couple days later, he came into my living room with a detective.
Right.
And I sold that detective some meth.
No shit.
Oh, no
Wow.
way.
Yeah. But that wasn't good enough, so they came back and did it a second time with a bigger quantity, and then they put their case together.
So they had to get you selling twice.
Yeah.
Damn.
Was that the first real bust? The real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first scare the shit out of me bust.
So
Right,
second
right.
time he comes in, you sell the undercover detective meth, right? You sold him meth.
Mm-hmm.
Does he, as soon as the transaction made, is it like the movies? Does he show you his badge?
No.
Doesn't show you his badge.
No.
He leaves. You have no clue.
It took them 6 months to arrest me.
So they start building the case.
Mm-hmm.
Are they watching you at this point? Then now.
You know, I don't know, because when you're as strung out on the shit that I was, you're not really aware of your surroundings. You know, your intention is to get out of bed when you go to bed and find another way to get high. So
pay no attention to the loud sounds.
Oh boy, how crazy! What a crazy experience. So what happened when they finally did bust you? Just come knock on your door?
yeah, they. So I was living with Serenity's mom in a different apartment, and they come and basically knocked on the door, and somebody answered it, and they came in and took me out in the community of the apartment, their complex there, in handcuffs and no shirt, and made me stand there for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Waiting for somebody to transport me to the jail. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever been to jail, when I went to jail, the charges were distribution of a controlled substance within 1,000 feet of a public parking lot.
Oh wow.
That's 5 to life.
Oh wow. So I got a silly question. Was your shirt off when they arrested you?
Yeah.
It was already off. Okay.
I was asleep when they
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure they didn't make you take it off, to make it
one of the rare times you're sleeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very rare.
So it took them 6 months before they built the case. And of course, you only find this out in retrospect. Does any of your you said you had family that was law enforcement, right? So obviously someone knew that it was going to go down in your family.
Yeah. In fact, I have one family member who came to me the night before the first cell and tried to get me to leave and go with
Oh, really?
them.
Oh wow.
Because he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Oh, and you didn't pick up on it at all.
Well, I picked up on it, but there was that pride thing too.
Right.
And I knew they were coming to my house, and I had friends that were living there, and I was the one that was doing the shit I wasn't supposed to.
Right.
So for me to bounce out thinking that the place is going to get raided and have all my friends take the fall, that didn't sit right with me. So I declined the offer to go help.
The first time you sold to the undercover, did you have any? I mean, every cell, when you're a dealer, is every cell? Could this be the one? Could this be a cop?
No.
I don't think you're thinking about it, are you?
Yeah.
No, and the simple fact that he was standing there with a kid that I've known my whole life.
Right.
Sure.
True.
And
for sure.
he's dressed like a construction worker. They're talking about working for Parsons, and they're going to go to
Right.
work right now, and they just want to get buzzed up.
Right. So at the time, the friend who flipped, were you like, "Fuck you, dude"?
Oh yeah.
Right.
When I found out that that's how it went down, absolutely.
Right.
Did you ever get a chance to confront him?
No.
No.
But in retrospect, 20 years later.
I'd shake his hand.
Right.
Right.
He started it wasn't the beginning. It was the beginning of the end of it for me, but I mean, it took a lot of years to get there.
Of course, yeah.
Man.
How old were you when you got busted? Then?
Yeah.
20, 21, 22?
Just a couple of years after your first time.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't take long.
Oh no.
Didn't take long.
No, and that's part of the addicted personality that I have. Because when I say I dive into something, like
You went
I'll
hardcore.
really dive into it.
Right. Right. So, okay. So you're arrested. You're taken to court. Did you have a lawyer or anything, or were you stuck with a public defender? Or
PD.
right. Right. So I'm curious. So you're in court, right? Everything's going down, and the first time you hear what your possible, maybe you weren't in court, but the possible time you'd be serving or could be serving. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah,
And where you were? You remember the moment?
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So when they hit me with the charges, they do that when they book you. They tell you
Yeah.
what the charges are. And
Right.
because I have family in law enforcement, and at the time my sister was working for AP&P,
Okay.
and when they told me that you're being charged with 2 counts of distribution, which is a second-degree felony,
Right.
but you were within 1,000 feet of a public parking lot, which is an enhancement, which makes it a first-degree felony. That's 2 5-to-life charges. That's
Wow.
a minimum of 5 years in prison.
Right.
Yeah, let's just say I shit myself.
So, I mean, so just the idea of just 5 years
Oh yeah,
was just probably super slap in the face.
yeah. Think about it.
Yeah.
Somebody
No,
walked
I don't
up.
want to
and
think about it.
You're standing there
I
in
don't wanna
handcuffs,
think
and they're
about
telling you that you can't leave for 5 years minimum.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I'd be freaking out.
No.
And I was.
Oh.
I finally got a hold of my sister on the phone.
Right.
And she calmed me down and talked a little bit of sense into me and said, hey, this is the first time you've ever been in trouble.
Right.
They're going to offer you a plea bargain, and they're going to put you on probation.
Did they ask you to flip on anyone else?
No.
They didn't even ask.
No.
They didn't ask where you were getting shit from, or
No, because I think they figured out that I wasn't actually a big dealer.
right.
My whole life was just trying to get high, and I didn't have a job.
Right.
So when I had
So
people
you were
that had
just
jobs,
dealing to feed your habit.
yeah, I was just buying other people's stuff and then taking a little off the top.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So 5 years, possibly more.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question is how long did you serve?
So the first time in jail, I was down for 6 months. That was
And they just keep you in county, or did you go actually down to Pointed
in
Mountain?
the county.
So you only did 6 months of what was supposed to be at least 5 years
Well, with the plea bargain,
with the plea bargain.
so there was an assault charge in there as well.
Well, what'd you leave that part of the story out for? Come on.
Yeah.
I might have time frames mixed up, which happens a lot.
Right. I'm
I
sure.
bet.
There was another charge, and there was some kind of a Class A misdemeanor.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh yes, I do. It was a theft charge because my little sister, her boyfriend was living with me, and I'd gone to 7-Eleven, which is right across the street from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, my lockbox had been picked open, and
Right.
the drugs I had in there were gone, and he was the only one there. So we got in a fight,
Right.
and I threw him out of the house. And then I called my sister, and I said, tell your boyfriend to come get his shit so I can rent this room out. I got to pay the rent, la da 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 la.
Right.
And he never came back. So I went in his room, and I took his TV to the pawn shop.
Oh,
Theft.
wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
So they just got you on whatever they could get you on.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I went into the court the first time, and the prosecutor was offering a plea bargain, they dropped the 2 5-to-lives to 1 to 15s. And I pled to the Class A and the 2 1 to 15s.
Right.
So now I'm looking at a year in prison, minimum, 15 maximum.
Right.
And since it was my first time, they suspend those charges and put me on probation.
Okay.
They made me serve 6 months in jail, and then they put me out on AP&P probation.
Right. Right.
I think I made it a week.
I was going to ask how long that lasts.
I made it a week on probation.
Yeah.
So you serve 6 months, you get out.
Mm-hmm.
A week later,
Back in jail.
you're back in jail.
On violation.
How soon before you hit the pipe again?
When you got out.
Yeah.
2 hours.
And you just knew you were going to do it. So you've been clean 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
When you were walking out that door, were you like, fuck it, I'm going to get high as shit? Or were you like, I got to not screw up again?
And I think the first time it was pretty much, fuck it, I want to get high.
Yeah.
And that's what I ran for the first time.
Right.
So they caught me on a violation, dirty UA, you know.
Right.
I don't think there was any more charges on that first violation, but I can't be sure of that. I don't remember. I did another 6 months on that violation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I had a year clean for the most part, other than that one.
Right.
And then I got out again, and
So did they send you right back?
oh yeah,
So you pissed dirty,
yeah,
right? You're right back in jail.
yeah,
How long?
6 months.
So another 6 months.
Yeah,
So, you knew you were gonna piss dirty,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Man, what goes through your head? Were you like, did you just not give a shit?
Well, you know, the initial I want to go get high is the not give a shit. After that, there's not a whole lot of thinking going on.
Right.
You know that. I'm assuming neither one of you have ever tried meth.
No.
Nope.
No.
It's an alteration of the mind that you don't ever want to experience, because it changes who you are.
Right.
It changes how you think.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so you're just like, I mean, when you're high,
Nothing else matters.
right? Because that's something that's kind of fascinating to me about addiction. And I've known plenty of people that have addictive personalities and stuff like that. Luckily, I don't have an addictive personality because I think I'm too much of a control freak, you know, to have an addictive personality. But
That is your addictive personality.
yeah, well, that's just it. Yeah, that's just it
Exactly
for sure.
right. Yep.
But what's interesting to me is like when you get high, I mean, there's no real, I don't know the best way to put this, but there's no real problem solving going on.
Right.
You're not questioning the meaning of life.
Oh no.
You're not, I mean, it's just the very surface stuff. Right? It's just like, I mean, it's just stay high.
Yeah, like quite literally, the only thing in your mind is there enough in my pocket to keep me up till I can see the dealer again?
Right. Right.
Damn.
And you're paying
What a
for
trap.
this. You're paying for this any which way you can.
What's that?
I said, what a mind fuck. What a trap
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
to be in.
Yeah. It's bad.
And how are you paying for it? At this time when you're back out again? Or was it just you got some, you went right back to jail?
Yeah, you know, I don't even remember.
You don't even remember?
Mm-mm.
But
Wait,
you were...
I don't mean to back up here.
No, go ahead.
Back up all you want.
But we skipped, you know, he went to jail and we skipped right over being in jail and being
Yeah.
forced clean.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind? What's that like? What's physically, mentally, emotionally?
You've never been to jail before?
No.
Not a day,
No.
right? So you're in jail for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like Eric says, what's going on up here?
Fear.
Right?
It's a scary place, you know. And then I don't know how long the fear lasts, but eventually, you know, with wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you get comfortable.
Sure.
A lot of card playing,
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of walking.
a lot of walking, and actually a whole lot of reading.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Louis L'Amour.
Yeah.
Yeah, we read that guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you see the hardcore gangbangers in there reading an old Western.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Physically, getting fat.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's potatoes. They feed you a lot of potatoes and eggs in there. You know,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
to build
Protein
you,
and starches and
get you built back up, because the majority of those that are in there for the same reason I was.
Right.
You know,
Right.
at that time, that was an epidemic.
yeah.
At that time in my life, that was when they were freaking out.
Right.
And, you know, maybe I should step back here. The day that I told you about when I went to my mom's house, when I was done, couldn't
Right.
support my family anymore. Couldn't
Right.
support myself. My dad put me in the car and he took me to Katy Hospital. You know, they did the tests on you, the mommy, the blood tests, and the decisions to see if I was physically healthy or if I was in bad shape, or
Right.
you know, and my dad's telling me he needs some help, he needs some rehab. I'll never forget it. That lady looked right at my dad and she said, "We don't have rehab for meth users, they just quit."
Holy crap.
Oh man.
Yeah. Things have changed a lot
Yeah,
since
a
then.
lot.
Yeah.
A little
A lot.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that about killed my mother, because then, she didn't have a place for me and the people that I was living with. So
Right.
she went to the grocery store and she bought me some groceries and she put some gas in my car and she said, go find a job, and she sent me on my way, knowing
Man.
full well that I wouldn't make it.
Right.
I didn't have any support. I didn't have any knowledge.
Right.
So in jail, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement.
Oh, did you really?
Yes.
For behavior stuff?
Yeah. There's
Fight?
there's a scar over my left ear from a coffee cup.
Uh,
Took about 13 stitches.
so for fighting,
Yeah.
what's the longest you stayed in solitary?
I was there 5 months. The second time.
Consecutively.
Yeah.
Holy
5 months.
crap.
Yeah.
What is that like? I want to know that.
It sucks.
Being alone.
If you have,
So you didn't prefer it there?
well, I preferred it there over the issues that would make me stay there longer with other
Right.
inmates.
Right.
And that's the thing about that system, is they put you in there with people that don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they're going to do whatever they have to do to keep you there with them. Misery
Right.
loves company, and if you're getting out,
Right.
they're going to figure out a way to help you stay.
Right. Yeah.
And did you know that if you punch somebody in jail, it's a third-degree felony?
Holy crap.
Oh boy.
It's considered destruction of property.
Wow.
Property.
Huh?
Very
I
good.
mean, you're property at that point.
That tells you a lot right there.
It does.
So let me ask you this. So had you ever, whether it was a kid, teenager, or whatever, had you ever thought about what it would be like in jail and how you'd handle it? Did you ever like mentally masturbate,
Prior to getting there?
Yeah.
No.
Never in your life.
No.
Never in your life. Okay.
Well, have you? Why would you?
Oh, because it's a great mental exercise.
Is it?
Yeah, because I know it would not be like anything you would imagine, but I've sat there and gone, how would I survive? How could you do it? To kind of speak to your situation a little bit, I recently saw a documentary, and it was called How to Survive Prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a bunch of different celebrities that narrate it and stuff like that. And it kind of goes through the arrest, the court, all that stuff. And so what they show is they actually profile 2 cases, and both these guys just happen to be innocent, right? One guy's in jail for 26 years, the other one serves 11. But this whole thing about affiliations, you can't stay neutral in prison. Those are things I've thought about before. Like, especially if you go to jail and you're not a violent person,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many people are in jail for, an ounce of weed across the country?
A lot.
A lot, right? And these aren't like violent people necessarily.
Right.
So when you're in there, did you have any, did you just learn on the job? You just figure out what works best for you? Did you have to affiliate yourself with a certain group of people?
I didn't have to, no. But you're way ahead of the process here, because in jail,
Right.
that shit doesn't really exist.
No.
Oh, and all right, the difference between jail and prison.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jail's short time. The longest you can serve in jail is a year.
Right.
That's just how it's set up.
Mm-hmm.
Jail's set up for misdemeanor charges.
Right.
Prison, on the other hand, is easier time.
Mm-hmm.
You have more freedoms.
In prison.
Believe it or not, there's more freedoms.
Oh, I've heard that before.
The food's better.
In prison.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it really is. County food sucks.
Right.
County food it fucking sucks. There's no other way to say it. It just sucks.
Right. So those nice private prisons, those privately ran prisons,
Yeah.
Were you in a state prison?
Draper.
And right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was after my 3rd probation violation. They sent me down for what would they call it, 90-day diagnostics.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to the prison for 90 days and did a bunch of classes. And
What are they diagnosing?
Yeah, what are they determining?
whether or not you're suitable for probation, or if you need to spend some time in prison.
Okay.
It's put on actually by AP&P,
Okay.
and they basically test and quiz you and determine whether or not you should go back out on probation or if you should start serving your sentence.
Right. So let me stop you real quick, because right now I'm picturing people listening to this, and there's people screaming, "What the hell is APP?" Is that what he said it was?
Adult probation and parole.
Okay, adult probation and parole. Okay.
Yeah, that's not who your sister works for, but that's the state ran part.
That's just, okay. So you're down there being diagnosed.
Yeah.
For 90 days.
Yes.
So this is your first time in prison.
Yes.
90 days. And you're like, "Oh, prison, way better than jail."
No, actually. So the diagnostics portion's done in one of the worst
Areas?
housing facilities
Mm-hmm.
as far as living conditions. It's 5 tiers tall. It's all one side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
It faces west. There's no air conditioning. All windows on the one side.
Oh, wow.
A couple of big fans downstairs. And an 8x10. Sometimes 2 guys to a cell, sometimes 1.
Shit.
Hot as fuck.
So
They sent me down there in July.
And you're there 90 days.
90 days.
Holy cow.
What'd they decide?
Well, I didn't get to go home.
Okay. I didn't think so.
So now they move you to a different cell block, a different part of the prison at that point?
Yeah. So 2 days after I got there, one of the guards came to my cell and got me. He says, "You have to go to the LT's office." And I've been in jail long enough to know that when you're going to the LT's office, it's usually not
Not a good thing.
something you want to be happy
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
That was the day that I found out that Serenity was born.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
I went to the LT's office. It was Department of Child and Family Services on the phone that had called the prison looking for me to inform me that they had taken my child.
Oh, fuck.
Wow.
2 days after I got there.
So mom wasn't.
Mom was high as a kite when she gave birth.
Oh, wow. Meth,
Mm-hmm.
too. Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
So they took your daughter.
They did.
She's newborn.
Mm-hmm.
Boy. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Then they offered, after the phone call, well, that was kind of funny. The guy that took me in there, he says, "We have people you can talk to if you need to."
Oh, man.
I don't, just take me back to my cell, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to talk to nobody right now, It's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was coming, but
How do you prepare for the moment?
right,
You know?
yeah. To have it happen like that just
Yeah.
was pretty devastating. And I think there may have been a little bit of a plot behind it,
As far as their timing on it?
Yeah,
type of thing?
trying to help, because mom
the switch.
there was no chance mom was doing anything with this kid. Mom was in bad shape.
Right.
So I think maybe they were trying to help me pull my shit together and get the fuck out of there and take care of my kid.
Right. But this is only 2 days into your diet.
Yeah.
Being diagnosed or whatever they called it. Right.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So, I dealt with that and I did my 90 days, and whoever gives their report to the judge was unimpressed with me. And
Right.
so when you go for your 90 days, they give you what they call a soft number, which is basically your prison number, but it's got a C in front of it.
Right.
And if you get to go back out on probation, that number goes away. But if not, they take the C off. It becomes a hard number, and now you have a prison number for life, which is the same number I'll use if I ever happen to go back.
What's your number?
304. Oh, shit, I forgot it.
Yes. Nice. Hey. Congratulations. Right here. Right now.
It'll come. 30493.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always thought that I would never forget the day I got out either, but I did.
Really?
I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my sister came and picked me up, but that was
So how long are you there?
18 months.
Oh, that including
damn.
the 90 days.
Yeah, they gave me credit for the 90 that I did.
Okay. 18 months in the state prison.
What was the worst experience of it all?
Yeah.
Was it a single event that happened?
The whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so.
And I mean, are you detoxing at this time too?
Oh,
I mean,
no,
are you
I'm way past detox? And I know there's some uneducation here. Detoxing from meth isn't like detoxing from heroin or pills.
Right.
I mean, a meth addiction, even though it it makes your body do things that are abnormal. So the biggest thing about meth is it makes you quit eating.
Right.
No appetite, so you start losing a bunch of weight.
Right.
But a meth addiction is all in your head.
Right.
I mean, it makes you. It releases endorphins into your body.
Right.
At a higher rate than what normal.
But you're
is.
not having real.
There's no physical withdrawal
withdrawals
from meth. No.
Okay.
Not that I ever experienced. And for people to tell me different kind of makes me laugh because I was a heavy user.
Right.
I mean, you can take a quarter gram of meth and be high for a week. I'll take a quarter gram of meth and be high for 10 minutes.
Oh wow. Heavy user.
Heavy user.
Right.
Head
So is the
first.
mental addiction.
Yeah, and the mental addiction is it's the worst. You know, I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster. That's what the detox of meth for me was, an emotional roller coaster. Because one minute you're sobbing and you're sorry for everything that you did, and the next minute you're so fucking pissed off at everybody and their dog for the decision that you made, that you haven't even come to terms with the fact that you made those decisions yet.
Right.
You know, it's pretty. What was the question you asked me that got me off on that tangent?
Well, you know, because Eric asked if you were detoxing at this time, and you were saying that it was just quick and done with, and because, you know, so you're kind of explaining that to us. One of the questions, you know, he asked you, you know, in prison, was there a worse time, and you said the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious though, was there ever a moment or a time when you're like, all right, I can do this, where you maybe start kind of assimilating to the point where it's becoming a little bit normal, where maybe you are from time to time laughing at a situation or a joke someone says or something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just like, you know, like I was saying about earlier about jail. Any situation you find yourself stuck in, you will eventually become comfortable to a certain point.
Right.
At the time I was in the penitentiary, they had this program. They call it the Conquest Program, which was a program directed directly at people like me. And the Board of Pardons, they saw that program as an enormously good thing for people.
Look good on the resume to get out.
Yes. So when I got my diagnosis, that was part of the sentence that they handed down, is that I was going to be required to make an attempt to complete that program.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 12-month program.
Oh, okay.
And it's the first rehab I ever did. And, you know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot about drug addiction. Right. And when I got out, shortly after I graduated that program, I was balls to the wall.
Right.
You know, I knew I wasn't going back ever.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
That place sucks.
So in essence, you were rehabilitated.
Yeah. I mean, I was 9 years clean after that.
Wow.
I mean, how hard of a struggle was that to stay clean? I mean,
the hardest part of the struggle for me was Serenity's mother.
Right.
I mean, I was literally head over heels in love with this girl.
Uh-huh.
All I wanted to do was take her ass up out of the ghetto and take my kid and find a nice place to live and get on with our lives away from this goddamn hell that we put ourselves in.
Right.
Yeah. And she wasn't willing to go. She wasn't willing at all.
Because the addiction.
Yeah.
She would not want anything to do with you?
Oh no, she wanted everything to do with me, but she wanted me to do it with her there. She's probably the biggest reason that I violated my probation. The biggest reason that I went to prison. Because I couldn't let her go.
Right. Bitches be crazy, dude.
Bitches be crazy.
You're right.
I told you.
We just, of course. So wait a minute. When you serve 18 months, you get out. Is there ever a moment where is she respecting your sobriety, or is she trying to get you to get high with her?
No, she never tried to get me to get high with her, that I recall. That's just a natural progression of how things went for us.
Right.
Comfortability.
Yeah.
Old routines.
Yeah. No matter how hard I tried, you know, she was She had a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I was completely fucking retarded.
Right. Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. At some point, it just, well, once I finished my parole,
Right.
I started fucking up again. I started getting high again.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
So you went 9 years clean?
No.
Did I misunderstand?
How long was the parole?
Parole was, so I was set to be on parole for 3 years.
Right.
11 months into my parole, I picked up an open container ticket.
Oh, jeez.
I was getting off work, and I was driving a little lowrider.
Wait,
painted freaking Honda.
You in a little lowrider.
Yeah, dude.
Oh. All right.
In Morgan County.
Oh, God. Yeah, you're sticking out.
So I was working on a dirt crew. You know, we were laying a
Right.
secondary water line up there, and my buddy Adam and I worked for the same company, and I drove up that day. But he worked on a different crew. And normally what would happen at the end of the day is we'd all get together at the lay down yard, throw down a beer, and then we'd go home.
Right.
Well, we were throwing down a beer, and that crew hadn't come in yet, so I jumped in my car with my beer
Oh, man.
and went looking for him. Lowrider, Morgan,
Right.
primer paint job, asking for fucking
Yeah,
trouble.
right.
yeah. You may as well have a sign on there that says, "Hey,
Pull me
come
over.
get
Pull me over. Yeah.
So they hit me with the open container ticket, and I immediately called my parole officer. I'm 11 months out of prison.
Right.
Freaking
Oh, I bet.
I didn't have a no alcohol clause, so I wasn't in trouble for the drinking. It was the in a car thing.
Right.
So it was 5:30 in the afternoon when I called him, and he said, "I'll see you in a half hour in my office." No, but yeah, I went straight to his office. You know, he threw me a cup. I peed in it.
Right.
We went in his office. The pee was clean. I was still clean at that point.
Right.
And he sat back in his chair. I'll never forget it. He sits back in his chair and he starts laughing. And I'm looking at him like,
This ain't funny, man.
I don't.
Yeah,
what are
what's
you
so
laughing
funny?
at? And he looked at me right in the eye and he said, "You got to be the dumbest motherfucker I've ever met." And I'm like, I'll give you that. Why? I was kicking you free next month,
No way.
and now I got to keep you 6 more.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
But that was all he kept me. I completed my parole in 18 months,
Wow.
and all charges were gone.
Right.
No more hanging over my head.
Right.
Shortly after that, I met my first wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I started fucking up again. So what happened, trying to get the order of things right here in my brain. I was fucking up before I met my ex-wife. But my dad put me on a bus, Greyhound, and sent me to Pahrump, Nevada to live with my uncle to clean me up. And I was there for about 3 weeks.
And you were, when you say you were messing up again, you were doing meth again.
Yes.
Okay.
How old are you at this point? Math-wise, 25, 26?
24, 25, probably somewhere in there.
Okay.
Dad sends me to Pahrump. I spend 3 weeks down there. I had already met my ex-wife at this point and wanted to come back here and be with her. We weren't married yet, but she was a user too. More of a closet user than I was. I was pretty open and flaunted about it, you know.
Right. Right.
So, again, what am I going to say this? I borrowed my uncle's truck.
Oh, yeah.
One morning I was supposed to be going to work. I was working in a kitty litter mine in Pahrump, Nevada.
Wow.
And it was a Saturday. And I just got my second paycheck. So I borrowed his truck and I drove into Vegas. And I parked his truck in one of those long-term lots with the ticket on the dashboard.
Right.
And I went to the bus station. I bought myself a bus pass and I came home.
Without the intention of coming back.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I called him and told him where his truck was. And he actually lost that truck because it wasn't registered. But I came back and I was unemployed, obviously.
Right.
But this girl I'd met, you know, my ex-wife, her dad was a plumber. He worked for Spears. he took a liking to me, so he got me hooked up on the job at Spears Plumbing.
Right.
Their application didn't ask if I'd ever been convicted of a felony, so I didn't tell them.
Right.
No ask, no tell.
Right.
Sure, absolutely.
3 months later, I applied for plumbing school, and that application did ask.
Right.
So through the rehab in the Conquest program, which I learned, honesty is the best policy. When asked a question, you answer it truthfully.
Right.
So I did.
Which you're using at the time. At this time.
No.
You're clean when you came back.
I was clean.
Okay.
The day after I applied for plumbing school, I got laid off. I'm pretty sure it had something to do with the application.
Sure.
I could be wrong.
Safe bet.
At that point, her dad hooked me up with the guy that did all the concrete cutting for Spears. And that's how I got into that trade. I worked for a smaller outfit out at Layton. I worked for him for a year. Big promises of high wages in my own truck and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. I never came along, so I jumped and went to Greens. While I was working for Greens, I tore the lumbar in my lower back.
Oh, man.
That was almost an instant addiction to pain pills.
Yeah.
Jamie and I had gotten married. Buddy was on the way. That's somewhere in there is where that 9.5-10 year span came. I was clean.
Right.
I was with her I got custody of Autumn at that time. Buddy was born. Then I hurt my back, and the pill addiction became a heroin addiction. Lost the job.
Right.
And went right back to the instant, easy money of selling meth and using. Again.
So, pill addiction first. Too hard to keep a pill addiction. Cheaper to go to heroin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And then to keep that habit rolling, you started selling meth, which obviously then you were just smoking it.
Mm-hmm.
So were you not even heroin at this point? Now you're just all meth again.
All meth again.
So this is approximately, if my math's right, you're somewhere into 10 to 12 years since your first arrest.
Yeah.
And you're back using meth.
Yeah.
Right? What was that like? Well, I mean, in your head, were you like, because the first time you're describing, right, when you're getting high and then you get arrested and all this stuff, and you said it changed the way you think. There had to be a difference this time around where you're like, I can't believe I fucked up again.
Absolutely. And, it was amazing to me how easily I fell right back into old patterns. So when I started using again with the meth, when I went from the pills to the heroin to the meth,
Mm-hmm.
I'd bought a house. At some point in there, I'd divorced Jamie. And I actually had another house that I'd purchased, and I was using my first house as a rental.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the meth has screwed up my brain because timelines don't exist in my mind.
Right.
But when I started using meth again, it was a matter of 3 months. Both houses were gone.
Everything just...
My cars were gone. Everything.
Just taken because you weren't paying for them?
Yeah.
So, 3 months back on the meth, and you've lost everything again.
Everything.
Have you lost your kids yet?
Never really had them.
Right. Okay.
Never really had them.
Damn. Okay.
And I want to circle back to this because I don't know this side of the story at all. First time you're in prison, Child Protective Services talked to you about Serenity. Now we're talking 10, 12 years down the road. What's the story there?
Yeah, what happened?
So, while I was in prison, my grandmother, my dad's mom, and my mother were trying to get custody of Serenity because they knew I was going to be there for a long time, and they knew that her mom was messed up.
Right.
But there was no way to prove paternity with me locked up.
Wait, they can't prove paternity when you're locked up?
Go give you a paternity test?
They could have.
Right. Right.
Nobody really will.
They don't really give a shit.
They don't. Right. Yeah, they don't care. I mean,
But
why
they
should
care.
they?
Right.
They got other things to handle.
Right. Just put the kid in foster care.
Well, she ended up in the custody of her maternal grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And has been ever since.
Okay.
twice since I got out of prison, I've had that lady in court for custody. And my record and my addiction, have shot me in the foot both times.
Right. And how old is she?
She just turned 18.
Okay. Damn. Okay.
That's one child support payment gone.
Right.
Another 6 to go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I have 4.
4 kids. Okay. So you lost your house as your cars, and you're still
using.
Oh, heavily.
Are you on your way back to jail?
Took me about probably a year before I got caught again.
Because you were well off of any kind of parole or anything at this time.
Right.
So
yeah, there was nothing hanging over my head at the time, and I was just kind of running rampant.
How'd you get caught?
So
caught for selling? Just caught some
no,
other?
just a possession, and this might go a little deeper than you guys want to know, but I had a spoon that had residue on it.
Right.
And that's what they arrested me for. That was a possession charge.
Yep.
They consider that. So, yeah. So you had paraphernalia. You had it on you, like in your car?
No, I was actually trying to buy some at a hotel in Ogden.
Really?
And there was a cop in the parking lot.
Just
and
watching.
I wasn't driving. I was in the passenger seat of
Right.
some girl's car that I don't even know who she was. But I had the spoon and some baggies and a scale in a pouch, and I'd stuffed it in the door. And when she left the parking lot of the hotel, maybe you didn't know this, but you're gonna now. She didn't stop at the sidewalk before proceeding
to the street. Yep.
Moving violation.
So when she pulled out, they let her up.
Right.
And I mean, they knew why we were there.
Of course. Yeah.
But I didn't have anything on me other than that
spoon.
And they kept us there for an hour and a half, maybe longer. I don't know. Time's really screwed up at that point. But they brought the dog in and let him walk around the car, and he didn't really point at anything. But then this girl I was with gave him permission to search the car.
That's the last thing you do.
And they found it.
And yeah, and they'd already taken me out of the car, and I was pretty fucking high.
Right.
And they obviously handcuffed me for their protection at the time while they were searching the car. And the cop told me, he says, if you just tell me what's in there, we'll just let you go. We'll take care of it. So I told him, I said, well, there's stuff in the door that's mine.
Right.
I got scales and baggies in there.
Yeah.
He probably would have let me go with the baggies, but not the scales, because that's intent to distribute.
Right.
Yeah.
And when he seen the spoon that had quite a bit of residue on it, he says, that's a felony. That's a good old possession charge right there. And that charge landed me in drug court.
Right.
And that's where I met Laura, who was the drug court counselor.
Right.
And I don't know what that lady did, but she changed the way I think. She altered me as a person.
Wow.
She convinced me that Serenity's mom was not ever to be a part of my life again.
Because up until this point, she still was.
Absolutely.
Big crutch.
Through your marriage and everything.
Not through the marriage so much, but I mean, I was only married for a couple of years.
Right.
Of those.
So around the marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before it and definitely after it.
Right.
Laura had, like I said, somehow she changed my perception of life and my perception of myself.
And she was a drug court counselor.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
And she figured out how to teach me to hold myself accountable for every decision that I've ever made and to accept responsibility for those decisions.
That's no easy task.
No, it's not.
Especially for an addict.
Yeah.
Were you through this process where she's counseling you? Are you facing some jail time?
I could have went back to prison.
Right.
For up to 5 years for that possession charge.
Right.
That was when you enter into drug court, they hold your charge in a plea in abeyance.
Okay, gotcha.
So I had some motivation in that
Yeah.
too.
Right.
But I think, honestly, if I'd have got a lesser counselor in that process, I might not have made it.
Wow, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. She's one of those ladies that, she doesn't get compensated well for what she does, and she saves lives.
Right.
She saved the shit out of mine.
Wow.
So you go through the drug court.
I go through the drug court
and you succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went in there with the same attitude that I went into so many other rehab places. Like, I'm just gonna do what they need me to do so I can get back to doing what I want to do.
Right.
And I think it took me 15 months to do a 12-month program. I did a couple of weekends in jail.
Did you?
Yeah, throughout that process because of a couple of UA issues. So I was UAing 4 times a week at first.
Right.
And then as you progress through the program, it gets a little less and less.
Were you what's interesting to me is, like, you did it. You had years clean, right? And now you're back in this situation and you're doing this shit, and you said it took you 15 months to complete a 12-month program, which means you had some issues. Were you resisting the counseling at the time, in the beginning at all?
Yeah.
So you were resisting, and she broke through to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, you tell this story, and I know we're getting, like, the very surface of, like, like you're saying, I was at the hotel with some girl, I didn't know who she was. That probably happened to you more times than you could ever count, where you're just with some other junkie, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know why you're there. I mean, you don't, looking back, you can't remember how you met him, where you got, whatever. So it all just feels so, for lack of a better term, dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I need to kind of take a shower right now, right?
Yeah.
So you're going through the drug court thing, the 12-month program that took you 15. And at some point through that, I had to been like, I can't believe I'm here again. Right?
Yeah.
So how much, when you started using again after you were clean for years, and this is kind of backing up, I was curious, how much was the guilt of fucking up again feeding your addiction? I mean, were you getting high to get past that guilt?
No.
No guilt.
I mean, there's guilt there, but I don't think that I was using the drug to max the guilt.
Right.
I was just using the drug because I wanted to be high.
See, that's interesting because, a lot of addicts will tell you, and a lot of psychologists and everyone in between will tell you that, that those addictions are always covering something up.
They're driven.
They're running from something. But it sounds like for you, it wasn't that.
No. I mean, obviously shame,
right.
In what I've been doing. But for me, so it's like, even through drug court, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, that's a requirement for almost any rehab these days because it works.
Right.
I absolutely flat out fucking refuse to go. And I somehow got Laura convinced to find another way for me to incorporate some part of my life some part of my treatment into my life that would substitute the AA meetings that I refuse to go to.
Why'd you refuse to go to them?
I don't believe in God. And I don't believe...
Or any higher power, right?
Right.
Because that's what they're talking about.
Yeah. And I don't believe that... Do I believe I'm powerless over my addiction? If I choose to use again, I am. But look at me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not powerless over anything.
Right.
If I make that decision, then yeah, I'm kind of powerless over what I'm doing. The drug takes control. But you got to make that decision. And if you give all your power to something else or someone else, then you're relying on that
right.
for your sobriety for the rest of your life. That ain't me.
Right.
I'm going to rely on me. I'm the only motherfucker that's going to put my shit up in the morning and
Right.
do what needs to be done.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you convinced her to substitute something.
Yeah, I think it was exercise. It was actually
No
what
shit.
it came down to. Yeah, she wanted me to walk.
Really?
Sounds like a fair trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Sounds like it got off easy. Yeah. Yeah. So you go through you finally pass.
Graduate.
That's right. You graduate from the drug court.
Remind me someday. I'll show you the video.
Oh, you got a video.
Video of you graduating?
Yeah.
The commemorative video. So since then you're clean.
Yes.
You know what's interesting about as you're telling this story, you were talking about Rachel, was it? Right?
We'll call her that. You can call her whatever you want. it's Raquel.
Oh, sorry, Raquel.
It's all right.
Okay, I thought you said Rachel. So you were talking about how she made you become accountable for your decisions and everything you've done.
Oh no, that's Laura.
Oh, sorry, Laura. Sorry,
Raquel's Serenity's mom.
Dude, you've just had too many women in your life. I can't keep them all straight.
You haven't even scratched the surface.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe
We'll
get
save
there.
that for another episode.
So Laura is your drug counselor. You said that she got you to see things a different way. She got you to be accountable for your decisions, right?
Yeah.
And prior to that, if you looking back, would you say you just weren't taking accountability for any of your decisions?
Well, yeah, it was everybody else's fault.
Right. Why?
Do
you know?
I don't know.
That's what's interesting to me is like what drives that part of your brain to blame other people, right? And that's obviously a very complex, question or whatever. So to hear you say you don't know, but what's kind of crazy is the contrast is we've known you for 5 or 6 years, and like the person you're describing, the person who doesn't take accountability, that's totally opposite of the person. It's not like we hang out and do a ton of stuff outside of family stuff, but just what I know about you and all that, like the fact that you weren't taking accountability for your actions and stuff like that just seems totally opposite than the person I know. So kudos to Laura for figuring out, how to break through that wall that you had.
Yeah, if I was to owe anybody in my life, I would call it. That would be her. She's
right.
She's the one.
She's the one.
Mm-hmm.
So were you ever at a point through all this craziness, whether it's in prison or, while you're using, were you ever at a point where you were in reality close to death in any way? I mean, I guess you're using, so there's always that thing. Was the meth, were you enough of a user where that meth was physically going to kill you?
I honestly don't even think that's possible.
Okay.
But that didn't stop me from trying.
Right. I mean, did you ever find yourself in any situations, whether it's dealing or just, because obviously the culture is dirty. I've heard some, crazy stories. I mean, even from your average, pot dealer. I know a story. We'll hopefully have him on the podcast. We know a guy named Ryan that, dealt for years and years. And, it wouldn't be uncommon for his house to get broken into because once enough people know you deal, they'll come after you. And he came home one day and someone had broken into his house, but they didn't just take his shit. They actually took a shit and left it on like the upper rim of the toilet. Like they missed the whole bowl and just left it, sitting up where the flat flips down. So he tells that story. He's like, they didn't just take my shit. They took a shit. So, but it's a very, dangerous, obviously, culture.
It's a common story,
right?
In the dealer
world.
So
were you ever? Did anything ever go down where you were like, shit, that was a close one?
So the janitor of my middle school
right.
was one of the guys I used to buy meth from.
Right.
Wait. The janitor of a middle school.
Well, he wasn't the janitor anymore.
Okay.
He was a janitor when I went there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
He came over to the house. This is on 24th Street before I got busted the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all downstairs in the basement. I was probably making pipes or something. That's what I like to do when I was high. And I came up the stairs and he was standing in the kitchen with his back against the wall, looking out the front of the house. And he had his hand behind him, and as he leaned forward a little, I seen that he had a gun in his waistband. And as I seen that, I stepped back and I looked out one of the side windows, and I could see that there was a cop walking around his car in my driveway. That was probably the most scared I'd been in my life. Because, we've seen the movies. We've seen how this shit goes down.
Right.
And I didn't know this guy well enough to know if he was going to pull that gun out and start shooting at the cops, or if he was just going to wait it out.
Right.
Luckily, he waited it out. The cop left, and then he left, and we all got high.
Holy shit. So it wasn't even something you necessarily were doing. You just because of the culture that you're in and everything like that, the scariest moment was from a guy that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Man, that's a lot of different. What's a shame is that you probably fried your brain so much. There's probably some really cool stories that in retrospect you probably can't remember all that much. Were you ever in physical danger? I know you said you have a scar on your head from prison. Were you ever in physical danger? Where you thought, oh my God, this guy's gonna kill me while you were in prison?
Oh yeah. I don't have a patch.
Right.
I didn't click with anybody when I was there. I did what I could to associate with everybody. Prison culture is different. It's very 1950s.
Right.
If you're black, you're black. If you're white, you're white, and that's the way that fucking world is. I didn't want to be labeled as a gangbanger.
Right.
So I did everything I could to avoid that. But it's scary in there.
Right.
Before I got into the program, they put me out in a general population where there's guys that are not ever leaving that place.
Yep. Right.
And for the 150-pound meth head that just walked in, and all these
dudes who don't give a fuck,
and very large
dudes
work out. That's all they ever do is eat and work out, guys.
Right.
That's scary. And the funny thing is the story I told you about the guy with the gun in my house.
Right.
As I was walking in to that pod, he was being released.
No way.
We passed each other in the corridor. We sat and talked in the corridor. And I think we talked because I owed him money. But yeah, it's and that was like a high school reunion for me in prison.
Really?
Everybody I went to school with down there.
No kidding.
Like.
So you're in Gen Pop and you're running into people you know.
Oh yeah. Class of 93 to 97 at Ben Lomond High School. I think the whole class is at Draper at some point.
Right.
It's Ogden and the meth epidemic at that point, and the gang violence that was going on back then is kind of what populated the prison.
Wow. Holy
from what
cow.
I could see.
So it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem. Yeah. So you said you did your best to kind of keep yourself and not be labeled as a gangbang or whatever.
Stay neutral.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You stay neutral.
But are you hanging out with just white dudes? You're not hanging out with black dudes in prison, are you?
Not in the Gen Pop area.
Right.
At the beginning, that was the white guys see me walk in and they're like, "Get over here."
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm new around here. You guys want to show me the ropes,
Yeah.
But that only lasted 3 days before they put me in the program. And the thing about the program that was good for me, because even though I got a scar on my head and I fought a lot when I was in school, I'm not a fighter. I don't want to fight people.
Right.
To get into the program, you have to be on short time, and you have to be on your best fucking behavior.
Right.
Because one slip up, and there's somebody else waiting to take your spot.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the program, it was pretty relaxed as far as behavior and issues went. There were a couple fights.
So are the people in the program in a
whole different part of the prison?
Part of the prison.
Yes.
So it fosters a little bit better of an environment.
Yes.
Where you can avoid violence and stuff like that, because everyone's in there going, none of us can screw up or we're out, and this is our best opportunity to get out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I did almost get in one fight when I was in that program, and it was over a card game.
They take their cards serious. They take their cards serious.
It wasn't so much the card game itself, but in jail they play spades, and in prison they play pinochle.
Right.
I learned pinochle. They play it cutthroat, so it's 3 guys, 5 decks. Don't ever play cards with me. I count cards, and I do it quite well. I was sitting there playing cards with this guy, and he never took his eyes off me. Like you and I are sitting right now talking, and you look in somebody's eye when you're talking to him.
Right.
But every time I'd look away, I'd look back, and he's still staring in my eyeballs.
And you don't know this guy at the point.
I don't know who he is. I knew his name. I didn't even know why he was there. I mean, obviously it was for drugs because it was in the same program as I was, and it was a drug program. But at some point, I lost my cool, and I just asked him. I said, "Are you fucking gay, dude? I mean, really? What's the problem here?" Right. And he stood up and went straight to his cell to put his shoes on.
Oh, yeah.
And, in the culture, you just know that when somebody's putting their shoes on, you probably ought to go put your shoes on.
Right.
Because we're all walking around in shower slippers, and you don't want to get caught in shower slippers if you're in a fight.
Right.
So I went and put my shoes on, and I went down and I walked into his cell. And the one thing I've always had going for me is the ability to talk my way out of anything.
Right.
And I walked in there, and I actually sat down on his toilet. And I said, we can do this and get kicked out of this program and fuck ourselves up, or you can accept my apology and we can go back and play cards. What do you want to do? And he looked at me and he said, don't you ever fucking talk to me like that again. And I'm like, cool. We good? Yeah. And that was the end of it.
That was it.
Wow.
Why was he staring at you?
Did
he ever tell you?
I don't know, dude. I don't.
Intimidation or something?
I've always thought I'm kind of pretty, but
yeah, he was staring deep into his eyes.
I thought I was pretty until I met Eric.
That's crazy, man. How far when that happened? When you at the point where you may fight and get kicked out of the program? How far into the program were you?
Oh, I was probably 9 months in.
Oh, so you were a ways in then.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That would have sucked.
Yeah.
Getting kicked out at that point.
Yeah. I don't, so you see those shows on TV about prison, and they show you the gang units, and
right.
Everybody's in there 23 hours a day, sometimes 72 hours. They have those areas in Utah State Penitentiary, but it's not like what you watch on TV. At least not where I was. It's not guys falling around each other holding onto their pockets.
Right.
It's not fights in the showers every other day.
Right.
It's a lot more laid back.
Right.
I'd never make it in San Quentin.
Right.
That's a whole different world.
Yeah.
But it was enough that I only did it once. Jail was kind of not such a big deal to me. Mm-hmm. It took a few trips to jail before they sent me to prison. But once was all it took.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. I don't know. This might be silly, but just through movies and so on, and just my own mental noise, I picture prison or any of those systems just constant noise, just constantly loud. Is that the case? Is it just constantly loud?
Jail is? There's a whole nother respect level in the prison. Yeah, you got to understand that there's guys there that are never leaving. That's their home.
Right. Yeah.
And if they don't want you to be noisy, you're not going to be noisy.
Right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sense. Yeah.
So listen, you were since everything's done, you get out with Laura, you get out of your drug court and all that stuff. So how long have you been sober this last stint?
7
years.
October, right? October 2011.
All right.
October 2011.
So here's the tough question. You had more time under your belt before you slipped back.
Than I have now.
than you have now.
I do.
And I would imagine that's got to be a thought that crosses your mind.
It's not. It
Because
crosses her mind.
Right.
Sure.
But you, because of where you're at and what you've learned and what you've been through, it's not. Is it just not even a question?
I've noticed that the things that put me into the position where I make those poor decisions are major life changes.
Right.
I mean, well, that's what they would say for addicts, especially. I mean, to get clean, you have to completely change your life, who you hang out with, where you live, everything. And
Yes.
I imagine that's true.
Very much so. Very much so. I had to eliminate.
And that's hard for a guy
Serenity's
like
mom
you.
from my life.
I'm sure that's hard for a guy like you, because you're a passionate dude. You connect well with people, and we've heard it through this whole story, from the girlfriends to the wives. You had a hard time leaving. You were so drawn to them, to Laura, to all these people. You're a people person, and you're loyal.
Very loyal.
And imagine that's really hard to do when you have to eliminate all those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, it was getting rid of Raquel was probably the hardest thing that I'd ever really done. But the last slip up was the major life changes. I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Moved back in with my parents, and then they got divorced after 31 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Their divorce was somewhat of a trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, and yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wish timelines were a little bit more clear in my brain.
Right. Right. So as an addict, which I think you'd call yourself.
100%.
So right. So are you because you've been here before, technically speaking, right? You've been here before as far as sober this many years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as an addict, are you actively, is it something you're always thinking about? Can't put myself in this position, can't go over here and do this, because of your addiction, or is it just that you set your life up in a way where you don't even need to worry about that stuff?
I've set my life up to not worry about that stuff. I've eliminated anyone and everyone that I ever knew
Mm-hmm.
that was a part of that culture, a part of that life.
Right.
And the other thing is one of the classes I went through in drug court, there was a second counselor that was on the class with Laura and this group of people, and they what the question was aroused, that was brought up was, does it get easier as time goes on?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody gives their own answers, and my answer was yes, but it's also no. And the other lady was unsatisfied with that answer. She had an issue with me. I'm not sure what it was, but we actually argued about that for a long time. And as time goes on, it does get easier.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also very, very easy for me to fall back into old patterns once I made that decision to use again.
Right.
So, to answer your question, there are days that I struggle in my mind, especially with the job I have now, where I'm not really allowed to think about. So my mind's allowed to wander.
Right.
And there are days that I struggle with the way things made me feel as far as when I was using.
Right.
Like the euphoric feeling you're talking?
Yeah. And some of the things that I would do when I was using, I catch myself shaking my head as I drive down the road to try and clear those thoughts from my mind. Even today, those they creep in.
Right.
But to have the knowledge that I was provided with in drug court and the previous experiences, I know without a shadow of a doubt that there is absolutely no way I can ever make that decision again.
Mm-hmm.
Because once I make that decision, it's all over.
Right.
There's no stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, but jail, prison, or death would be the only thing to stop it. And they say knowledge is power, and that little bit of knowledge, it's pretty fucking powerful. It's pretty powerful. So.
And that's just kind of what you hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
That's intense, man.
Yeah.
Lifelong practice.
Yeah.
That's intense.
And I honestly hope you guys never meet that guy.
Me too.
Yeah. No.
He's not a nice person.
No.
He's not a nice person.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's. I can't imagine. Well, man, I want to say thanks for coming in. We won't keep you too much longer. My mind's kind of blown. That's obviously I knew there were going to be interesting stuff, but that's a pretty long, drawn out event that you went through in your life, and I think it's awesome that you are where you're at today. And I think this, for me, this was perfect because, like I said, I'm sure there's a million stories that you have that revolve around that time in your life, and there's probably some pretty fascinating ones that we didn't even hear, but it's just cool to know that you've been through that, and that now you're at a point where, now that Eric and I know you the way we know you, and you don't seem like that guy at all. You know what I mean? So I think it's pretty cool, man. It's exactly what we want to do this podcast for, is to get, to know people better.
And why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
And it's much clearer to see why you are who you are at this time.
Right. Makes more sense now.
Complete sense.
Yeah. So, dude, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no problem.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's the podcast. That's it.
See you later.
Cool. See ya.